from Surfrider's South Orange County chapter. I'm actually here, can we see slide number 2, please? I'm here on behalf of our thousands of members and supporters in South Orange County. I'm also a resident of Dana Point. San Onofre Surf Beach is one of our favorite beaches of all time, and it actually is where my daughter Lulu learned to longboard and where she competed in many surf competitions. Surf Beach is one of my favorite places to spend quality time with friends and family. In fact, Surfrider Foundation, we often have retreats at this beach, at Surf Beach. We at Surfrider are deeply committed to protection and enjoyment of Surf Beach. Just a little note, San Onofre is the closest example, both in and out of the water, to the idyllic Waikiki. So if you've never been there, you really should, as State Parks representative said, go and experience it. The culture on the beach is that of aloha and good times. Slide number 3, please. Indeed, Surfrider has spent decades defending San Onofre State Beach from potential impacts from nuclear waste to the proposed toll road. Protecting and enhancing beach access in all of its forms is core to our very mission. From water quality to ocean trash to illegal gates, we have fought that which detracts or prevents people from experiencing the joy that our coasts provide. Slide 4, please. All of this will be irrelevant if there is no beach for people to go to and no longer any waves to surf. This threat is very real, not only because of sea level rise, but because we keep armoring our coasts in knee-jerk reactions to it. This expansion of coastal armoring is hastening beach loss instead of protecting it. Here's a perfect example at Capistrano Beach in South Orange County. Slide number 5, please. And that was taken in November and December of 2018 and continues on to be an issue. The relationship between coastal armoring and increased coastal erosion is well established. When we meet rising seas with seawalls, we lose our beaches, the recreational opportunities they provide, and the benefits California's coastal economy brings the entire state. Slide 6, please. What this means is we already know that the best long-term solution to protecting access at Surf Beach is not armoring it. In fact, the staff report specifically points on page 19 that, quote, given the impacts of shoreline protection and expectation of sea level rise and increased rates of erosion, a long-term management plan that does not rely on hard shoreline protection would be the preferable approach. The entire beach is experiencing acute erosion, and as you can see this in the photograph. Cue in the next slide, please. We've seen this pattern up and down, there it is. We've seen this pattern up and down California's coast. An emergency permit for armoring is granted, then extended, despite conditions not being met. And every emergency armoring permit, despite being issued as a temporary solution, becomes permanent and ushers in destruction. This leaves the public without a chance to provide input, and with beaches that erode more quickly, ensuring that those beaches and the waves that are associated with them will be the first to disappear as sea levels continue to rise. Here are just a few examples on this slide that you can see. Cue the next slide, please. Thank. Merriam-Webster's dictionary defines an emergency as, quote, an unforeseen combination of circumstances or the resulting state that calls for immediate action. Sea level rise and increasing erosion are well-known phenomena on the California coast, and ample state-level guidance exists on best planning practices. The erosion event that occurred in 2016 at San Onofre was by no means unexpected, and at this time I'm going to hand it over to Kylie Wakefield, our policy manager with the San Diego chapter of Surfrider.
Hello, I'll try to be quick. I'm Kylie Wakefield, Policy Manager, Surfrider San Diego. I'm here representing also our thousands of members, and like many other people who spoke before me, this is also a very treasured place for many San Diegans and myself. If we could go ahead to slide 10, please. Unfortunately, erosion has been an issue at Surf Beach for several years, and according to the San Onofre State Beach report completed by Moffitt and Nickel on behalf of State Parks, I quote, 2016 was the beginning of recent erosion problems at Surf Beach due to a higher than expected El Nino event in 2015 to 2016, as you can see in the picture here. Slide 11, please. One more. So additionally, the report states that the state of California also experienced a multi-year drought spanning from December 2011 to March 2017, which was the driest period of historical record. During this extended dry period, erosion occurred, as would be expected, at San Onofre State Beach. State parks had ample opportunity to develop a shoreline management plan for this park. Instead, they waited until the erosion was so acute in 2017 that it constituted an emergency and took the easy way out by placing a revetment. Next slide. So as you can see, the 800-foot rock revetment and concrete retaining wall that state parks installed was never intended to be a temporary structure. We would argue that this is evident in its size, scale, and composition. The revetment is made up of 3 to 8 ton boulders placed directly on Surf Beach, with the total amount of rock placed being approximately 7,000 tons. The revetment is approximately 16 to 18 feet high and 15 feet wide. Next slide, please. You can see the concrete there in the retaining wall, as well as an approximately 5-foot deep concrete wall dug into the existing roadway. Our point is that had state parks and the Coastal Commission proactively implemented a temporary response to the erosion event, we would now be in the position of developing a well-thought-out plan to address erosion at Surf Beach with meaningful public input. Instead, we're stuck with a course of action set into motion based on this short-sighted reaction. Managed retreat has been mentioned multiple times today, and we would like to see that implemented in a meaningful way. Next slide, please. All right. According to the Moffett and Nickel report on Surf Beach, throughout the 60s and 70s, a large volume of sand was excavated from the power plant construction and was placed on the shoreline. This increased the width of the beach, including Surf Beach, and up coast of the Bulge. Much of the public nostalgia for the good old days when a wide beach and several rows of parking facilitated a car culture comes from that era, as you can see here. If we could go ahead, another slide, please. As mentioned, historically and naturally, Surf Beach tends to be much narrower, and these photographs depict, you can see here in 1938, depict the beach in 1938, as well as the historic shorelines where the narrow shoreline of 1889 and 1934 are shown. You can see there in the lines below. Next slide, please. Now, not only is Surf Beach returning to its more natural narrow state, it is facing additional stressors of drought, lack of sediment input from adjacent bluffs, and sea level rise, in addition to other coastal hazards. Next slide, please. The Moffett and Nickel report also concludes that shoreline erosion is likely to continue to be an issue along Surf Beach due to the factors listed on this slide. For the sake of time, I'm just going to continue on. This is significant because it predicts future impacts of the seawall. Increased erosion means that eventually the mean high tide line will meet the toe of the bluff, and the seawall will amplify beach erosion and impact surf quality due to backwash effects. We know that this isn't happening at this time, but that is one of the long-term impacts that could be occurring. We would prefer that the revetment be phased out in the near future as part of a plan to maintain the health of the beach and public access. We understand that it may not be prudent at this time, but as such, there's a number of measures that we need to see included in the coastal development permit in order to ensure improved management and restoration of natural coastal processes. And I'm going to hand that over to Mandy Sackett. She's going to introduce our points.
Okay, thank you, Mandy Sackett, Surfrider Foundation. With our global headquarters office. I'm going to cut to the chase with what our requests are and sort of wrap things up. You should have a handout in front of you that summarizes our asks. Surfrider greatly appreciates the inclusion of Surf Beach erosion monitoring and annual monitoring reports. And this also provides the opportunity for the public to give their input, and those are in special conditions 1, 7, and 8. So thank you, staff, for your great work on that. We feel strongly that the conditions still need more specificity in order to ensure adequate and representative data is being collected. First and foremost, due to the variability of surf on a daily and actually hourly basis, data collection 2 times per month is woefully inadequate. Wave quality data should be captured at least 2 times per week in order to adequately represent conditions and changes to conditions over time. Other surf monitoring programs, such as at the San Elijo Lagoon Restoration Project, required twice weekly monitoring, and the Regional Beach Sand Project, too, in San Diego County, had daily surf monitoring. Given the potential for serious impacts to this treasured surf break over time, twice weekly monitoring over the lifespan of the revetment at Surf Beach is an extremely reasonable frequency. In addition to the wave quality parameters listed in the special conditions. We'd also like to see added breaker distance from the shore, length of peel, existence of backwash, and density of surfers. Those are sort of standard surf monitoring that we've seen in the literature. One other key aspect that we'd like to see is whether or not the mean high tide line reaches the toe of the revetment, and that would be based on daily observations. So if adequate data is not collected, it would render any efforts for surf monitoring useless. Surfriders research and participated in surf monitoring programs. We feel strongly that our input and other public input should be incorporated into the final surf monitoring program, rather than an agreement that would be worked out between staff and state parks, and that sort of as conditions are written now in the staff recommendation. State parks claim to be conducting surf monitoring since construction started, but has not produced any data for the public or staff to review. Without specific requirements, it's likely parks will disregard this requirement or fail to produce any meaningful data. We've seen their disregard so far, and we've also seen their disregard for meeting all commission deadlines imposed by permits. We also appreciate the 5-year limited authorization and requirement for development of a long-term hazard management plan in Special Condition 1, and the inclusion of public workshops. That's great, and we support it. Without a plan that clearly lays out the short, medium, and long-term erosion control measures, however, it's really likely that state parks will again wait for another emergency and propose hard armoring structures in lieu of meaningful planning down coast of this revetment. We do not want to see this entire beach armored. And as you have seen here, next slide, please. Next slide. Sorry, one more. The entire beach is in need of is experiencing acute erosion and is in clear need of a stepwise plan. We urge the commission and staff to incorporate more specific special condition language that details the parameters, especially alternative parking options, and including bluff top parking. As written, the special condition language that the plan assesses alternatives that are capable of protecting the public road, but it does not specify further evaluation of alternative parking options or construction of a bluff top access way. Bluff top parking may be available in a phased approach, and stakeholder meetings should be held to evaluate all parking possibilities. And while park scientists mentioned their recommendation of phased removal of the seawall, that is not solidified at all in this permit. The long-term plan should be to evaluate and recommend short and medium-term contingency, as I mentioned. State Parks has the opportunity, next slide. State Parks has the opportunity here to make Surf Beach a shining example of coastal adaptation projects. State Parks could work cooperatively with other agencies, I'm just wrapping up, and the local community to seek funding and make this a resilient beach for future conditions, as is being done in Surfers Point in this slide. So thank you. Let's please not settle for a mediocre solution for this amazing California treasure.
Thank you, Ms. Sackett. Does the department